I never needed anyone. My career, my house, my life, I built it all myself. Then one rainy Tuesday, the richest man in the city walked into my bakery. Not for the pastries, but because his car broke down. And everything I thought I knew about love shattered. I never believed in fairy tales. Never had time for them, honestly. My name is Maya Johnson, and for the past 7 years, I've poured every ounce of my being into Sweet Roots Bakery. Those 4 a.m. alarms, the burn scars on my forearms, the nights spent perfecting recipes instead of going on dates. That's the real story behind these walls of exposed brick and the line of customers stretching down the block each morning. This place is my heart made visible, my dream that I fought for when everyone said a black woman from my neighborhood couldn't own a business downtown. People always ask if I'm lonely. I used to laugh at that question. How could I be lonely when I have everything I've ever worked for? My condo overlooking the park, my team of incredible women who've become family, and the satisfaction of knowing I built this all myself. My mother taught me early, don't wait for a prince, build your own castle. And that's exactly what I did. Dating? Sure, I tried it, but between inventory orders and payroll, relationships always felt like one more thing on my endless to-do list. Love wasn't a priority when I had an empire to build, but life has this funny way of showing up exactly when you think you've got it all figured out. I remember that Tuesday in October, the rain coming down in sheets, the fresh cinnamon rolls just out of the oven, and the sound of that luxury car sputtering to a stop right outside my door. I had no idea that moment would change everything. Stay with me to see how a chance encounter completely rewrote my life story, and why true love might be waiting where you least expect it. I grew up in Southside Chicago, where dreams often took a backseat to reality. My mother worked 2 jobs, hospital janitor by day, waitress by night, just to keep food on our table. I still remember the look on her face when she'd come home, her hands raw from cleaning chemicals, and still find the energy to help me with homework. Maya, she'd say, your mind is the one thing nobody can take from you. Those words became my mantra through college, where I balanced 3 part-time jobs just to afford textbooks. My first attempt at opening a bakery was a spectacular failure. The location was wrong, my business plan was naive, and I nearly drowned in debt. I remember sitting on my apartment floor surrounded by unpaid bills, crying until my eyes swelled shut. But the next morning, I got up, took an extra shift at the coffee shop, and started again. It took 3 more years of saving, planning, and countless rejections from banks before Sweet Roots found its home. Those early days were brutal. I slept on a cot in the storage room for 6 months, showering at the gym, and putting every penny back into the business. People would walk by, see my face through the window, and keep walking. Some would come in just to tell me I wouldn't last a year in this neighborhood. But something beautiful happened. The few customers who did come in started bringing friends. My Caribbean-inspired pastries weren't like anything else downtown, and word spread. By year 3, we had lines out the door. By year 5, I had bought the building. The New York Times called my black cake transcendent, and suddenly everyone wanted to know my story. Dating during all this, let's just say my relationships never made it past the 3-month mark. Men either felt intimidated by my drive or expected me to scale back my ambitions to make more time for them. Neither option worked for me. My mother's voice would echo in my head. A man should add to your life, not subtract from it. So I made peace with my solitude. My world became the bakery, my small circle of friends, and the comfort of knowing I answered to no one. Independence wasn't just a choice, it was my most prized possession. I had convinced myself that love was a luxury I simply couldn't afford, not when I had already defied every statistic and expectation placed on me. Looking back now, I realize I wasn't just building a business, I was building walls. October in Chicago brings this particular kind of rain, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question why you live here at all. It was just past noon, that sweet spot after the morning rush, but before the lunch crowd. I was experimenting with a new nutmeg and brown butter pastry when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of an engine giving up the ghost, followed by a string of muffled curses outside my window. Through the rain-streaked glass, I could make out the silhouette of a sleek black Bentley, steam rising from under its hood. In this neighborhood, a car like that usually meant one thing: someone was lost. I returned to my dough, figuring whoever it was would call their driver or assistant or whoever rich people call when inconvenienced. But then the bell above my door chimed. He wasn't what I expected. No designer suit, no air of entitlement, just a tall man in a simple grey sweater, rain dripping from his close-cropped hair. What caught me was his eyes, warm, almost apologetic, as he awkwardly stood on my welcome mat to avoid dripping on my floors. "I'm so sorry to barge in," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "My car decided today was a good day to die, and my phone's dead too. Could I possibly use your phone to call for help?" I remember being struck by how he asked, not demanded, not expected, but genuinely asked. In my experience, men with Bentleys don't ask, they instruct. I handed him my phone and went back to my pastries, trying not to stare as he made his call. When he returned the phone, he asked if he could buy a coffee while waiting. "Whatever's your specialty," he said, sliding into a corner table by the window. I brought him our house blend and a slice of sweet potato pie. On the house. He seemed surprised by the gesture, then took a bite and actually closed his eyes. "This is incredible," he said, looking at me like I'd performed some kind of miracle. "Did you make this?" When I nodded, he asked question after question, not about me, but about the bakery, the recipes, the inspiration behind each flavor. His name was Elijah Rivers, though I wouldn't learn until later that he was the Elijah Rivers who'd transformed a small tech startup into a billion-dollar company. In that moment, he was just a stranded stranger genuinely interested in my little bakery. His car service would take at least an hour, so we talked. About food, about growing up in Chicago, about the changing neighborhood. Not once did he look at his watch or check his phone after it charged enough to power back on. When he finally left, he thanked me by name. He'd remembered it from our conversation, and asked if he could come back sometime. I said yes without thinking, surprising myself. As his new car pulled away, I realized I'd spent an hour talking to a complete stranger and had enjoyed every minute of it. I didn't know it then, but my carefully constructed life had just begun its most unexpected chapter. 3 days later, Elijah returned with no broken-down car as an excuse. He arrived just before closing, politely asking if I had time for a coffee. Something in his demeanor, a genuine humility that seemed at odds with his obvious wealth, made me say yes. That night, I learned he grew up just 20 blocks from my childhood home, the son of a postal worker and a teacher. His path to success began with coding in his parents' basement, building websites for local businesses while still in high school. I got lucky, he insisted, though his story revealed years of grinding work and vision. What struck me most was how he spoke about his parents, with the same reverence I felt for my mother. When I shared my own journey, the rejections and setbacks, he nodded with real understanding. "Banks turned me down 17 times before my first investor took a chance," he confessed. Our stories, though ending in different tax brackets, shared the same foundation of persistence against the odds. That first intentional meeting turned into weekly dinners. I found myself looking forward to Wednesdays, planning my outfit while pretending I wasn't. My friends noticed the change immediately. "You're smiling at your phone," my assistant manager Tasha observed one day. "You never smile at your phone." I brushed it off, insisting we were just friends, though the flutter in my stomach when his name appeared on my screen suggested otherwise. Elijah moved through the world differently than anyone I'd known. He could secure impossible restaurant reservations, but often suggested we grab takeout instead and talk on the pier. He asked questions and truly listened to the answers. When I spoke about expanding sweet roots, he offered connections without trying to take over. "This is your vision," he said. "I'm just happy to witness it." Still, doubts plagued me. What could a billionaire possibly want with me long term? My friends were divided, half thrilled, half suspicious. "Men like that date women like us as experiments," my college roommate warned. I carried that fear into every interaction, searching for signs I was just a novelty in his world. But each time I pulled back, Elijah responded with patience rather than pressure. The moment everything shifted happened on a regular Tuesday. I'd had a kitchen disaster, an oven fire that destroyed an entire day's inventory. When I called to cancel our plans, Elijah showed up anyway. Not to take me out, but with sleeves rolled up, ready to help rebuild. Until 3 a.m., he stood beside me, mixing batter and washing dishes, never once complaining or checking his watch. Watching him, covered in flour, with complete disregard for his expensive watch, I felt something crumble inside me, a wall I'd built so carefully over years. In its place bloomed a terrifying realization. I was falling in love with Elijah Rivers, and my carefully independent life would never be the same. The day our picture appeared in the Chicago Tribune Society section, everything changed. Tech billionaire Elijah Rivers and local baker, Chicago's newest power couple. The photo caught us leaving the symphony, my hand in his, laughing at something now forgotten. My phone exploded with messages. Childhood friends, distant relatives, even former classmates suddenly remembering my existence. The bakery saw a surge of new customers, many more interested in catching a glimpse of Elijah than trying my pastries. My mother called, concern evident in her voice. "Baby, are you sure about this man? People like that live in different worlds." Her worry wasn't unfounded. At a charity gala where Elijah was being honored, I overheard two women wondering if I was the help before realizing I was his date. I smiled through gritted teeth, but the insecurity burrowed deep. That night, I picked our first fight, questioning whether we were fooling ourselves about bridging our worlds. "Do you think I don't notice how people look at us?" I demanded, pacing my living room after the event. "How they wonder what you're doing with someone like me?" Elijah's face registered genuine confusion. "Someone like you? You mean brilliant, determined, and beautiful?" His sincerity disarmed me, but the fear remained. I'd built my life on self-reliance. Depending on someone else, especially someone who could disappear into a world I couldn't access, terrified me. The real crisis came when Elijah's company faced a potential merger, requiring weeks of travel and late-night negotiations. Our communication faltered. In the silence, my insecurities flourished. When tabloids published photos of him with a stunning executive from the acquiring company, I convinced myself our story was ending predictably. Instead of calling him, I withdrew completely. 3 days of silence later, he appeared at my apartment door at midnight, exhausted and confused. "Why did you shut me out?" he asked simply. The vulnerability in his eyes broke something loose in me, and truth poured out. My fear of losing myself in his shadow, of becoming an accessory rather than a partner, of inevitably being left when the novelty wore off. For hours we talked, really talked, about expectations, independence, and trust. "I fell in love with Maya Johnson, the woman who built something extraordinary through sheer will," he said, taking my hands. "Why would I want to change that? I'm not asking you to shrink, I'm asking if we can grow together." That night marked a turning point. We established boundaries. Sweet Roots remained solely mine. Our finances would stay separate, and we'd communicate fully rather than assuming the worst. I learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness but courage. Elijah learned that his world of immediate solutions couldn't fix every problem. Some required patience and understanding. Together, we discovered something neither of us had fully experienced before. A partnership of equals, different in circumstance but aligned in values. The path wasn't smooth, but for the first time, I wasn't walking it alone. Elijah proposed on a Tuesday, exactly 1 year after his car broke down outside Sweet Roots. No grand gesture, no audience, just the two of us in my tiny bakery kitchen after hours. He held out a simple emerald ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "I don't want to change your life," he said. "I just want to be part of it, all of it, the challenges and the triumphs." I said yes before he even finished asking. We decided against a traditional marriage. Instead, we created our own contract, literal and figurative, outlining our commitment to supporting each other's independence while building something new together. The media called it eccentric. We called it honest. Our ceremony was intimate, held in the community garden where my mother had taught me to grow herbs for baking. Elijah's tech fortune meant nothing there. Among the soil and growing things that connected us to our shared roots, Sweet Roots expanded, but on my terms and through my vision. Elijah contributed his business expertise when asked but respected the boundaries we'd established. I found freedom in this new balance, the security of partnership without the sacrifice of self. My mother, initially skeptical, eventually told me through tears, "This is what I always wanted for you. Someone who sees your light and wants to help it shine brighter." Together, we established the New Roots Foundation, focusing on entrepreneurship programs for underserved communities. Walking into those classrooms, sharing my journey with young people who saw themselves reflected in my story, it fulfilled something in me I hadn't known was missing. Watching Elijah mentor young programmers with the same passion I felt teaching baking skills, I recognized how our different strengths created something greater than either of us could have built alone. Our life isn't perfect. We still argue about schedules and priorities. His world of board meetings sometimes clashes with my pre-dawn baking hours. But what we've created feels revolutionary in its ordinariness. Two people who respect each other's dreams while nurturing shared ones. Last month, Forbes did a profile on us, calling our relationship a modern blueprint for successful partnership. The interviewer seemed disappointed when we couldn't pinpoint some grand secret. The truth is simpler and harder. Love doesn't require sacrifice when it's built on mutual respect. Elijah didn't rescue me, and I didn't complete him. We simply recognized in each other someone who understood the value of building something meaningful, and chose to build part of our lives together. I still wake up at 4 a.m. to bake. Some mornings, I find Elijah already awake, working quietly beside me, our silence comfortable. In those moments, I understand that true love doesn't change your story. It expands it, adding new chapters while honoring all that came before. Looking back at my journey, I sometimes laugh at how fiercely I guarded my independence, as if love were some kind of trap waiting to spring shut. The truth I've discovered is both simpler and more profound. Real love doesn't diminish who you are. It creates space for you to become more fully yourself. That rainy day when Elijah's car broke down outside my bakery wasn't some magical moment where my life suddenly gained meaning. My life already had meaning. My bakery, my accomplishments, the community I'd built. These weren't just placeholders until real happiness arrived in the form of a relationship. They were, and still are, the foundations of who I am. What changed wasn't my worth or my story's value. It was my willingness to allow someone else to truly witness it. I think about all the times I declined dates because I was too busy building my empire. Some of that was necessary focus, but some was fear. Fear that loving someone meant losing myself. If there's one thing I wish I could tell my younger self, it's that the right person won't ask you to choose between your dreams and their love. They'll show up with their sleeves rolled up, ready to help you chase those dreams even harder. My mother once told me that the measure of a good relationship isn't how it feels in the highlights, the fancy dinners, the romantic getaways, but in the ordinary moments and the hard ones. She was right. It's Elijah bringing me coffee during inventory counts, or holding my hand at my mother's hospital bedside, or respecting my need for solitude when creativity demands it. It's the willingness to have difficult conversations rather than comfortable silences. Don't misunderstand me. Finding love didn't complete my life. That narrative is as dangerous as believing we must be alone to be powerful. What it did was add dimension, challenge me to grow in unexpected ways, and bring joy into spaces I didn't know could be more joyful. Your story isn't written in stone. Be open to unexpected chapters, but never compromise who you are. Like and subscribe for more real stories about finding love while staying true to yourself. And remember, building your own life doesn't mean you have to walk alone. Sometimes, the most courageous act isn't refusing help or connection, but allowing yourself to be truly seen, with all your strength and vulnerability, by someone worthy of the view.